brief history of Wasm. So let me see. Oh, here we go. It's animated. I didn't know that. Back in 2010, this is before I was at Mozilla. Alonzo Kai introduced Inscripton, announced it Inscripton, which was a way to compile C and C++ to JavaScript using LLVM. And as Luke mentioned before, that's sort of sneakily because it targeted JavaScript, but there was a way that SpiderMonkey, which is Mozilla's JavaScript engine, could recognize it and sort of compile it more directly. A year later, it seems like Google was working on the same problem in a different way, which is how to bring native stuff to the web. And they did it through a thing called Native Client, which was a heavily resourced initiative to use LLVM bytecode in a way that would run in Chrome. And so a lot of browsers were struggling with that idea because it seemed like it was going to be not really compatible with the web and difficult to secure. A couple of years later, well, a year and a bit later, in 2013, Luke announced Wasm.js as a way to get this Inscripton working really quickly by recognizing it. And even though it's JavaScript, it was a well-defined subset of JavaScript, and you can have a look on the wasm.js.org website to read up more about that if you're interested. But this is really the thing that made it possible and showed that it was possible to actually do this stuff at all, because the performance was, close enough to native that a bunch of games were able to be ported to the web. And then in 2015, this is, and I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. He announced near-native Wasm.js performance in Edge. So it was good at this time to see that Microsoft was supporting the Wasm.js initiative, and that sort of showed that this was the path that browsers were going to need to follow. So what happened the following year is that because browsers had, I guess, little choice but to follow this, there was enough momentum, and it was clear that there was a path that you could convert WebAssembly into Wasm.js. It was possible to reach consensus amongst the browser makers about what Wasm.js actually was, and there was a lot of it was something that it took a lot of negotiation, I'm sure, and Luke can probably tell you more about that. But yeah, he was able to. They were able to reach agreement and actually ship something that was and it's important to realize at this point it was an MVP, and it was designed to be the minimum you could sort of get away with to get this sort of class of application working. But it still performed extremely well. Sort of later that year, it was noted that the native client had been destaffed, and that Google were no longer working on it, and that it was clear that that WebAssembly was the way forward for the web and for Chrome. And then that's right. In 2017, chairs announced that, which was some of the people above, but also a different group of people announced, so it's people from all the different browsers, announced that the MVP consensus had been reached. And 2017, it was noted by Judy McConnell of Mozilla that all the browsers were now supporting WebAssembly MVP. So that was a great moment for the web, because it meant that you could now use WebAssembly and not have to have some fallback path to Asm.js, as some sites were using. And then in 2019, Lynn Clark announced Wasm, which was a standardization effort outside of the browser. And this was actually an important milestone, because up until then, the focus of Wasm had been, how to bring native applications into the browser, and also interoperate with JavaScript. But at this point, it was starting to be obvious that there were many uses outside the browser of WebAssembly as a cut down cross-platform platform. Later that year, Lynn Clark also posted about the Bytecode Alliance. She works for Mozilla, which is an initiative with Mozilla, Red Hat, Intel, and someone else. But that
Fastly.
Sorry, Fastly, yeah. And that was which is putting some industry behind Wasm.